Okay, so yesterday we started talking about, I wanted you to get to convert a fraction into decimal and percent. And there was a little trick, right? You need to round to 2 decimals. And the trick was basically that when you go 5 divided by 6, and you round it to 2 decimals, you get 0.83, writing it as a decimal. If you want to write it as a percent, you need to go back to what this gave you on the calculator, multiply that by 100, and then round again. So see how they're different, right? Like 0.83 and then it's 83.33. Don't forget the percent. If you multiply a decimal by 100, you need to have a percent symbol or else it's wrong. Okay, so I don't know if I said this yesterday already, but Denzel Washington is coming up with The Little Things, right? That movie. It's the little things that you need to watch out for. So let's keep going. And we started towards the end talking about mixed number fractions. So this is really 3¼ right? So 3 whole units and then decimal. So if it's just been like a quarter, it'd be 0.25. Now you have a full whole number, so that's 3.25. You multiply that by 100, you get 325%. Okay. Next, 17 and 1/8. Maybe I will show you the best way to approach this. You go 1 divided by 8 to get this into a decimal. Then you go plus 17, and now it's, right, like then it's 17.125. So it's 17.125. If you were to write that down, you would get no deduction whatsoever because it's a finite number. It stops, and this is correct. But I'm going to encourage you to round this to 2 decimals, so that'd be 17.13, right? Because the 5 bumps that up to a 3. As a percent, you got to go times 100. So if you multiply this by 100, you get 1,712.5%. And by the way, these are the exact same, right? They're both correct. One is as a percent, the other one is as a decimal. This one should be fairly easy for you to do. That's just 24.5. That is the decimal. If you multiply that by 100, you get this. Okay. So how did I get there? Just multiply that by 100. So you can go from a fraction to a decimal to percent, just like that. Does that make sense? Yeah. Should ring a bell. But it's very important for me for everybody to be on the same page before we embark in our journey, right? Like I want to make sure that, let's say this never made sense to you. Hopefully now it's that one last shot where it does make sense to you, right? Okay. Round the following to the nearest hundredth, and that means that's a fancy word for, right, 2 decimal places. And if you're ever wondering, like, what should I do? What should I round to, right? 2 decimals is my answer. 2 decimals. However, it's always going to be, let's go back up here where it says the final. I do say final answers round to 2 decimals. And you'll see what I mean. When I do work, I will often not round until the very end. That's when I round to 2 decimals. And you will know what I'm talking about in a bit. So let's round the following to the nearest hundredth, okay? So basically, I will say this again. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds down. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 rounds up. Right? It's just how it is. So if you cut it here, if you want to round it to 2 decimals, you really want to say which one is this closest to. Is it 1798 or is it 1799? That's really what you're asking, okay? So this number will tell you what to do with this second one. So we go 17.9 And since this is a 4, you round down, meaning you're going to go to 9/8. Okay? That's how simple that is. Again, here you want to round to 100, so you cut it here. So is this number closer to 0.24 or is it closer to 0.25, right? That's what you're asking. So the 9 will bump that up to a 5, so that's 0.25. And I'll just keep going, and then later on I'll get you to do some work on your own, okay? 2 decimals here, cut it here. This 4 will just keep that at a 5, right? So we're actually rounding down, right? You get rid of all this and you round down to 0.45. Okay, two decimals is right here. This 9 will bump that to a 9, so 201.99. You cut that here, and this is going to be a ripple effect. Okay, this 8 bumps that to a 10, right? It'll bump that to a 10, which will bump this to a 2. Okay, so this is actually 1048.20. Next, ripple effect again. This 6 will bump this to a 0, to a 10, which will bump this to a 10, which will bump this to a 9. Then you're done. Okay, so this is actually 259.00. I just like to have the 0.00 just to emphasize the fact that, right, these two 9s were bumped to 10s. And it just keeps on going until you have no 9 left. Again, the 7 will bump this up to a 10, bumps this up to a 10, bumps this up to a 10, bumps this up to a 10, and now we get a 5 out of that 4. So this is 500.00. Again, the 4, is this going to be a ripple effect again? Actually, no, because the 4 will keep this at a 9. Okay, the 4 doesn't bump that up, so this is 789.99. Okay, if anybody, if you join late and I didn't mark you, just let me know, like put it in the chat, I'm late or something, right? And then later on I can adjust that because I don't always look at the screen. Let's keep going. By the way, most of this stuff you will see again in some way, shape, or form in the course. So I'm kind of prepping you for it, okay? Determine the following. 3% of $250. You need to convert this to a decimal. So how would you do that? You go 3 over 100. Like whenever you see the percent, remember how we multiplied by 100 to get it to a percent? You do the opposite. You divide, okay? And of is always times. And this one actually has a unit, dollars, right? We're talking dollars. And one more thing, this turns to 0.03 times 250, right? You have to get it to a decimal, or if you just keep it here, you could have gone 3 divided by 100 times 250. That's also acceptable. But this is really where we're at. And that's 750, right? So your calculator does this, right? But my calculator doesn't know that we're talking dollars, so it does that. You would actually be deducted half a mark on a provincial exam. If it's a dollar amount, you have to have 2 decimals. That's why you will see me just add a 0 regardless, so you don't have to worry about it, right? I'm just going to train you to do that no matter what. So 3% of $250 is 7 Let's keep going. 2.75% of this, you divide that by 100, right? It's 2.75 divided by 100. And what do you get when you divide 2.75 divided by 100? You get 0.0275, right? This turns into that. And then I'm just going to go times 2,550. And that is 68.76 dollars, right? Don't forget the dollar sign because those are the units that we're working with. We've got 0.85%. There it is again. That means that you need to write it out of 100, right? You need to divide it by 100. And that gets you 0.0085. Just go ahead and do that with your calculator if you're not sure, right? Just go this divided by 100 gives you this, and then you multiply that by 675. And that's $5.70, now rounding. You gotta love rounding, right? So here it is. 737. That 7 will bump this up to a 4. So the correct answer is, watch what I'm going to do here for your notes, which is 5.74. It should actually be approximately, but because it's a dollar amount, we round it to 2 decimals, okay? 2.75%. What's going on here? Well, this can be rewritten as 2.75%, which can be written as 2.75 over 100. Notice that I dropped the percent when I write it out of 100, right? Which can be written as 0.0275. Do not drop any decimals when you're doing, right? You're calculating stuff still. And right, you have that. And that is 15,536.96 rounded. By the way, I do make mistakes from time to time, so don't be shy and don't feel like you're gonna offend me if you let me know. Okay, just don't let me do the whole thing and then tell me at the end. Even then, I won't be upset, but it'll just be a bit more work for us to fix that, right? Okay, so this one out of 100, get rid of the decimal. You get 2564. So just so you know, just a little, if you have like a 2-digit, like 25 or something percent, then you'll have 0.2, right? Like it will start right after a decimal. If it's just a 3, right, or a 2, a 1-digit, a 1 whole digit, then you're looking at a 0.0, right, or something like that. But to be sure, just divide it by 100 and you'll get it every time. Times 7,850 people, right? Oh, that's not dollars anymore. You're right. And that is 2012.74, which is approximately, we got a round, right? So we want to just have whole number of people. So this is your whole units right here, the 2. So the 7 will bump that up to a 3. You cannot have decimals for discrete, right? So number of cans, number of coins, number of people, and so forth. You can't have decimals, okay? All right. This is my favorite part here. One of my favorite parts. Uh, Solving for proportions like that. Okay. So these are proportions. You basically have a fraction here. You have an equal sign and another fraction on this one, and you're trying to figure out what should this be for this equation to be true, right? So I always tell students, start on the side where the variable is. You're gonna do a journey here. Start on the side where the variable is, go to the number, right? And from there, you're gonna go, because you're down in the denominator, you're gonna go up, arrow up, and then arrow down. So it's gonna go this way, then this way. Let's do the same thing here on this one. Where's my variable? It's on the left side. I go to the number. Because I'm in my numerator, I'm gonna go down, across, and then I'm gonna go up, right? Until you touch all three numbers that are there left. On this last one here, go to your variable, which is x, go to the number, you go down, and then up. Now what? Now we're going to solve, folks. Every single time, the first step, every time, is going to be multiply, and then the second step is divide, always. So you can, the one that goes across like that multiplies, and the one that goes either up or down, like the second step, is divide. Multiply, divide, right? But this is the kicker, okay? I need you to show me the step that is between your answer and this. So what you're gonna say is, in this case, it's n. N is equal to 38, and I like to use brackets sometimes. 38 times 45 divided by 76. And that will give you your answer right there. And it doesn't matter how big those numbers are, how ugly they are, it works every time. So n is 22.5. I will just check once here. Check. 45 over 76, what does that equal to? Let's go. 45 divided by 76. That is 0.592, and it keeps going. Right? So this fraction here is that as a decimal. Technically, I now found that this is supposed to be 22.5, right? So we go 22.5 divided by 38. You go 22.5 divided by 38 on your calculator, and you get the exact same thing, right? So you have, right? You've checked that your answer here is actually correct, because you found what n should be for this equation to be equal. And if 22.5 is placed in for n, it gets you the exact same answer for both sides, okay? Next, here on this scenario, do exactly the same thing as your journey is showing here. You go 3.95, you're starting here, right? Times 95.7 divided by 124.5. And then go ahead and type that in. You can type that in all in one shot. And practice with your calculator, because if you have a different calculator, I'm just gonna show this here. This keeps going like that. So m is gonna be 3.04. And we have no units here, so we just keep it at that. There are no dollar signs, no centimeters. miles, yards, nothing. Okay. Now we're going to solve for x, 1.25, right? Our journey starts here, times 0.85. If brackets scare you, just use the times, right? It's all good. And I don't know where my key is, so I'm actually doing this live. Okay. And here I'm just going to give you the final answer, even though it keeps going. But there it is. So this is how you solve a proportion no matter what. Okay, it works every single time. So find your variable. It could be on either side. In this case, it's here on this right side. Go to the number associated with this variable, right? And then start your journey. You go down and up. Always multiply, then divide. Okay. This comes back, even in vehicle finance, we'll do this towards the end with fuel economy. I'm just going to count to 5 or so for folks at home. You're writing this down. Okay. I'm going to ask you to do everything to like from E to I right now. So I'm going to give you some time to do this right now. You try, okay? And how about we give it like 10 minutes or so, maybe 5 to 10, we'll see. So I'll pause the recording. I'm just going to do the from E to G, I'm going to do that. This one goes to those that don't like brackets. Those are the answers to the first three if you round it to 2 decimals. And then I have some word problems here. If a car uses 8.5 liters per 100 kilometers that is driven, right? Determine the amount of fuel to drive this many kilometers. So they basically start you off with a fact, right? That you're using this many liters per 100 kilometers. And now there are units involved, right? So basically, if this is true, then you can actually make predictions about different scenarios, right? And since you know how many kilometers you will have driven, right? You got to match kilometers. And so they're going to ask you for X number of liters, right? Same thing. This is your variable. You start here, go up, then down. Right? So multiply, divide. So X would be 1259 times 8.5 divided by 100. That is 107.02, that is, liters. So set up the step that shows me what you've done and then the final answer. If you had put down 0.015, that would have been correct because it stops. But I always encourage two decimals, because if you don't, right, if it isn't finite, then you're in trouble. It costs $128.90 to purchase 3 cans of paint. How many cans can you purchase with 350 bucks? So this is true, right? It costs you this much to buy 3 cans, right? And they tell you that you have a certain dollar amount. So since dollars are on top here, you could have flipped this. You could have said 3 cans is this much. Then the dollar amount would have had to go down here. You just have to make sure you match the units across like this. Dollars and dollars, cans and cans. Right? So I go down like this, up. So multiply, divide every time. And I should highlight that there's number of cans, right? So we can't have a decimal there. So 350 times 3 divided by 1289. That's 8.145, and that keeps going. So that is approximately 8 cans. Like you can't buy, you don't have enough to make it to the 9th, right? So in this scenario, within the context, unless you are actually at 9 or higher, that's the only time you would put down 9. Anything below 9 would just automatically round to 8, although the province is okay with, like if this had been 8.5, then you can round it up to 9 cans. They're okay with that. Okay, as long as you don't keep it as a decimal. All right, that's proportional reasoning in a nutshell. Now it says evaluate the following expressions, and this is really using your calculator. Can you use your calculator to do this? Okay, so if you have a 2-liner like mine, you can actually type all of this in one shot and you get the answer. If you don't have a 2-liner like mine, then you probably have to do this in a step and then this in a step. So I will show you the step by step first. So 7 times 2.85 times 1.12. We are not going to round just yet. That's the key here. Okay, you write down whatever you get. And then I'm going to clear my screen and do the next one. That is 42.265. We don't know if this is dollars. We don't know what this is. That's why we don't round. If it's money, they are okay with you rounding to 2 decimals here and then again at the end. They're okay with that. So I'm just going to take this answer that I have and just add, and that's 64.61. But I actually encourage you to try all this in one shot because the calculator knows bed mass. So we'll first multiply this, then multiply all this, then add, right? Because multiplication comes before addition, okay? But doing it in steps there's nothing wrong with that, okay? So here we have another one. We can do some mental math here. This gives you 6. So we go 6 times 450, and that's a dollar amount. See that? That will turn this whole expression here into dollars. So that's 28.35. Right? Plus, I'll figure out what that is. 7.5 times 125 times 1.12. That's 1,050. So this middle here gives me 1,050, and it's in dollars as well. Plus, clear my screen, 55 times 1.05. Oops, see, I made a mistake there. That's 0.05. That's 57.75. Also dollars, right? So now we're going to add all three. I'm just going to go backwards here and add up all three, and that gives me 1136.1. Right? You got to put the 0 there, especially because it's a monetary amount. Okay. And so I'm going to go as far as I can, and then the rest of this worksheet I'm going to assign for homework. Okay, and that what I mean is you try as much as you can and see if that rings a bell. So the first two here that we did should have been doable without much difficulty. Now there's a couple that you're gonna have to be careful with. Whenever, like this is the mistake a lot of students make, right? They go 680 divided by 6.75, and then they go times 2.5. That is wrong, because if you do that, the calculator is thinking this, okay? Like if you go 680, sorry, I actually reversed this, my bad. Undo. Okay, 680 divided by, if you divide it by, it will put the 6.75 down here, and then it will multiply 2.5 up here. It's actually thinking this if you do this in one shot. So this is wrong, okay? What you want to do is you want to go 680 divided by, and you want to put this in brackets, 6.75 times 2.5. That's what you want to be doing. This down here needs to be in brackets if you want to do this in one shot. But let's fast forward this. I'm going to do this again, and this is what I recommend you do. This is what I will recommend you do. You don't do anything yet. You just figure out what this is. Just do the denominator and separately. And this is 16.875. Don't round. Okay. Now you're going to divide. Now you're going to go 680 divided by 16.875. And that is 40.296. So that will round, right? 296, this keeps going, which is 40.30, because the 6 bumps this to a 10, bumps this to a 3. That's what you would put down for 2 decimals, okay? So when you have multiplication in the denominator, make sure you do that first, right? And I think I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm going to skip D and E for now. You can try that on your own, and I'll go over it tomorrow briefly, okay? Maybe even just posting the answer key so you can check. I want to do some tax questions here. Okay, so this I'm going to do this. That means that you try those. Let's go to 6. And for now, the PSD and the GST, right? It's 7%, 5%. If you ever forget this, don't guess. I have a lot of students coming up with 13%, right? Because that is what it used to be. your formula sheet, where's mine? I don't have one on me, but I think the back of your formula sheet, or is it at the front? Front, I think it's at the front, at the bottom somewhere. Does it tell you? Yeah, it does? Okay, there you go. So if you're like, I can't quite remember, make sure you check, don't just guess. That formula sheet comes with you for everything as well, okay? So bring your formula sheet, bring your study sheet, right? So yellow and blue. Okay, so 7 and 5, that adds up to 12%. Okay, just so you know, because we're about to just do a shortcut. It says calculate the total before and after tax. That is the wording that the province likes to use. Before tax obviously means no taxes added. After tax means after the taxes have been added or including tax, right? So Jenna purchases 3 pop drinks at $1.25 each, as well as 4 Dream Donuts at $1.50 each. So we would go 3 times $1.25, right? Plus 4 times $1.50. That's a good mental math question, right? This you can multiply. That gives you 3.75 plus 4 times 150 is 6. You could do this all in one shot if you wanted to. You can try it. And this would give us 975. This is before tax. So this would be the price before tax. This is the trick to adding taxes. I'll show you the trick, okay? Instead of multiplying it by... Okay, thanks for letting me know. That's why I record my lessons. So 975 times, watch this, 1.12, not 0.12. You're going to go 1.12, okay? If you think about it, what's 1.12? That's 112% turns to that. And why 112%, Mr. Why, Mr. Dirksen? Well, think of this as 100%, and then you're adding 12% taxes. You end up paying 112% of what it used to be. So if you go 9.75, let's go ahead and do that. You get 1092 after tax. That is the trick. You go 1.12. It will include. So whenever you see something at a store, you're like, I really want that, right? What would it be with taxes? Just take your cell phone and type that value times 1.12. Boom, you've got taxes included, right? So that's the shortcut. I will say, or you could do it this way. This is the longer way. You go 975 times 0.12. So let's go ahead and find that. That's $1.17. This is just the tax, okay? This is just the tax here when you're doing it this way. And then you have to go 975 plus 1.17. And that should be the exact same thing as before. I'm going to highlight this, the 1.12, right? And this is 0.12, which means you have to add your answer to the subtotal to get that right. We're going to use this a lot in this course. What do you think this is going to be if you only need to add GST to something? GST is 5%. Instead of 1.12, we would go 1.12. 0.05, not 1.5, because that'd be 50% tax. I don't think I would want to live in this province if taxes were 50%, right? So 1.05. So there we go. Next, Jake buys a gaming console for $399.99 and two new games at $54.99. Calculate the total. So that would be $399.99 and two games at $54.99. I will do this in one shot, right? So $399 plus 2 times $54.99. That's $508.98. That's before tax. And then times 1.12. That's 570.06 rounded. Money has to be rounded to 2 decimals. There is no 3 decimal answer there. So this is before tax. This is after tax. You got to enter. Oh, did I make a mistake?
Yeah, I got it.
Sorry. Thank you. Somebody already told me that online. Good thing I saw that. Ooh, yeah. Sorry, guys. I'm just following my feedback. I'm just kidding. I I do a course evaluation at the end, and one student says, like I asked, how can you improve the course? And the student said, make mistakes on purpose so we actually pay attention. And I was like, hey, that's what I can say when I make a mistake. I'm just purposely making sure you're following. Not really. It's an honest mistake. All right. But that's the importance of showing your work. If you had made that mistake, that's half a deduction, half a mark off, and but you're still like I can completely see that you understand what's happening, right? It's just an honest mistake, right? So showing your work is key. And count to 5. Folks at home. Hold on. I don't know why it's not.
Wouldn't the after tax be rounded up?
Oh,
6 to 7.
hold on. 509.97. I didn't actually look carefully enough, I guess. Yes. Yes. Right? 166. This bumps to a 7. You're right. Correct. Thank you. I don't know why it didn't tell me that somebody typed in. Okay. I think I'm going to leave this to you here. I have a feeling you know how that goes. I'm going to leave this to you as well. Province actually has charts quite often like that. I'm going to I'm going to let you do that because you kind of talked about taxes. So please star them in, circle them, do whatever you need to do to make sure you practice this like right away, okay? And then tomorrow we'll go over it briefly. Do you remember Pythagorean theorem? I hope. Yes, okay, good. So what I'm gonna do a shortcut. Okay, I don't do the full, I don't write out the full formula. There are two cases. Hypotenuse is missing, or a leg unknown. Okay, it's either either the hypotenuse is unknown or the leg is unknown. So the hypotenuse is always across the 90, is the hypotenuse. and this would be leg, leg. Over here, this is your hypotenuse. This would be leg and another leg. Okay, that's how I label it, as simple as that. So if you're missing your hypotenuse, it's the longest side on the triangle. That is going to be equal to the square root of leg squared plus leg squared. So you know some of your teachers might have done a, b, c squared, right? I don't do that. I just like, let's focus on what are we missing. And you know how you always have to take the square root at the end anyways? That's why I just write it out like that. So if you have, I don't think you need to worry about your study sheet just yet when it comes to this, but maybe down the road. So hypotenuse in this case would be 2.75 squared plus 3.15 squared. And I keep the square root. Don't do that until the end. And I'm going to stop after this. I might do this one yet, and then we're done. And so everything I circled or told you to try, please try it. So 2.75 squared. I have an x2 button, by the way. How do you square, Mr. Dirksen? If you have one of these x2 buttons, you're going to have a lot of an easier time. So the x2 or the hat. If you have a hat like this, right, you can just press hat 2, that is also squaring that number, plus 3.15. I'm going to use the x2 now, right? So either one works. So you square them both, add them, and write down what you got inside. And do not round. Okay? If it keeps going, you would go dot, 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 right? And leave it on your calculator. And the last step is to take the square root of your answer. I have an answer button. Some of you don't need to press the answer button. But if you take square root of your previous answer, you get 4.18, and this is in inches. This is rounded. And just to make sure, right, it should be the longest side. Is it? Yes, it is, right? So we're good. Last one, folks. Let's do this before the bell goes. If you're missing one of the legs, it doesn't matter which one, you would say leg is going to be the hypotenuse squared minus the other leg squared. Maybe I'll just, it's very important that there is a minus there. No, I will not deduct marks if we use another method. Nope. As long as it's mathematically sound, you don't get any deductions. So leg is 15.78 squared minus 7.65 squared. Basically, we're finding m, right? I should have switched over to m here. But k over here, right? It should have been k, but we get it because you've labeled it, right? So go 15.78 x2 minus 7.65 x2. So if you're now sitting there, it's like my calculator is not letting me do what you're doing, then your task is to figure out what you need to do to get the answers, okay? And if it's still not working for you, let me know. It's like, Mr. Dirksen, my calculator is acting up on me. I will help you figure that out. Okay, we'll stop it here.